I'm Deb, and I'm a full-time artist. You're not a real artist. You don't know what you're doing. And I have imposter syndrome. Maybe you do too. I don't know. I think we're going to talk about it today. I know we're going to talk about it because I just finished the voiceover for it. We are going to go real deep. I'm going to tell you a very personal story about one of the biggest times that my imposter syndrome hit me, like, really hard. So we're going to talk about that. I mean, it's a huge subject, and I have so many stories I could share with you about it, but I felt like this was a big one. But if you have imposter syndrome or are wondering what it might be, or if you might have it, chances are, if you're a human being, you have suffered from it, and it's any sort of self-doubt you've had about whether you were worthy of praise, or if you did the job well enough, or if somehow you're just pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. I mean, we're just fooling everybody here. I'm not really an artist. I'm a fraud, and I've been fooling everybody into buying my art. And one of these days, I'm about to be found out. I'm sure of it. If you've ever dealt with this, hopefully this story helps you feel a little less alone. And I'm going to tell you not only the story, but what I do to help combat it. So buckle up, Buttercup, because here we go.
Imposter syndrome. Well, let's just get into it, shall we? I'm going to tell you a story about my own run-in with imposter syndrome, and it's only one of many, many, many tales. I have dealt with this a lot throughout my entire life, and even recently. It's something that never truly has gone away. And first, let's talk about what the hell imposter syndrome is. So it's defined as the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as the result of one's own efforts or skills. And basically what that means is, no matter how much you've achieved or whatever praise and accolades you've gotten from the outside world, there's something inside you that's like, no. No, you guys don't know what's really happening here. I've pulled one over on you. I'm a fake. I'm a fraud. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I can't believe anyone is listening to what I'm saying, or looking at what I'm presenting, or buying what I'm selling. This can come from just a lifelong belief that you are unworthy because either you grew up with a lot of criticism, or, you have these people-pleasing tendencies. There's just so many things it could be. It doesn't necessarily mean that you grew up with an emotionally abusive caretaker. But I can say that in my case, I definitely grew up with a lot of criticism in my family. And a lot of it was just, I think, because also I've talked about it before that I have ADHD and wasn't diagnosed until I was in my early 30s. And learning more and more about it and accepting that part of me more and more, the older that I get, the wiser I become, hopefully, that, sometimes the things that people labeled as laziness was really, and being distracted and flaky and all this stuff and just constantly having my head in the clouds, had a lot to do with the fact that I was dealing with ADHD and it was not treated. People weren't checking little girls for that kind of stuff. I heard it a lot growing up in school that, my work ethic was terrible and I wasn't paying attention. I was a daydreamer and all this stuff. And I would hear it at home, just criticism about things that maybe I was trying to do. And most of that criticism, and I love my parents, this isn't me bashing my parents or anything like that. The point of their criticism was really honestly coming from a place of love, because they wanted to see me do okay. You take it to heart when you're a little kid and you feel bad about yourself and that you can never get your act together and all that kind of stuff. And when it came to art, I suffered that a lot. So here is one heck of a story I'm going to tell you about. And I'll be honest, I feel nervous talking about this, but let's be real. I think the only way through learning sometimes is hearing about someone else's experience. And maybe you can see if some of these things line up with the way that you feel, or maybe it's a reason why you hold back from doing things you want to do. I'm not great at drawing faces, like realistically drawing faces. And I have talked about this before in previous videos, but it is something that has been tough for me because when I started getting more successful with my stationery business, a lot of the biggest selling things were things that related to pop culture. And while I love pop culture and I love making fan art for things, it's a double-edged sword. It's popular, but it's also short-lived. And then also there's this thing of copyright infringement, which you do not want to get caught up in that mess. But aside from that, I'm not great at drawing faces, and like I said, a lot of my stuff that's pop culture related, where I'm drawing celebrities or celebrities' likeness, was one of the best-selling things. Well, one of the things that I made was a Donald Trump birthday card, and it was making fun of Donald Trump. Basically, it was just like a braggadocious Donald Trump, and just like going like, I forget exactly what the wording was, but it was like, I make the best birthday cards, or I give the best birthday cards, and nobody gives better cards than me, yada, yada, yada. And I drew like his smug face on it. And I drew it originally, it was just a birthday card for my dad, for his birthday, because he loves Donald Trump. I do not. Let's not get into all the reasons why, because the video ain't long enough. But I made that, gave it to him, and everyone who had seen it was like, you need to sell this in your Etsy shop, because I only had an Etsy shop at the time. And I was like, I felt really icky about doing political stuff. And I don't know, I just felt uncomfortable about it. Well, I decided, for the hell of it, all right, I'll put some out there and see. Little did I know that it was going to become immensely popular in my Etsy store. And it was like on the front page of like funny birthday cards when you would search in Etsy, and especially if you searched a Trump card. And when I drew it, whenever I'm drawing someone's likeness, I have a lot of trouble getting it exact. And when you're drawing someone like a well-known person's likeness, you have to have it right, or you have to do a really good caricature of them. You have to capture their essence somehow, so people are like, yep, I know that person. What I do is I take a reference photo and I will put it like on my iPad, like I have it there to look at. I try to draw out the best I can, but then I will always make my sketch layer transparent and then put the celebrity photo layer underneath it, and like try to size it up to see how close am I. And I'm usually just not close enough. And when you're staring at a drawing that you've been working on for a long time, you start to lose like focus, like, does this look right? And I get frustrated. So I end up usually trying to morph my image to fit the actual person's photo, Or I have to redraw some things, and I usually like the eyes were like too high or too low, or or not spaced right, or the nose is just off. Noses can be tough. So I end up in some ways tracing over that. And I felt like that was cheating. It's not, by the way. And plus, I know a lot of people that actually do that regularly for their art, that they'll just trace over an image and then they paint it or color it their own way. Whatever it is, it's not cheating. It's it's allowed. There are some people who are extraordinarily talented and really have an eye for that, and they're very good at it. But I'm not, and it's one of those practices I'm trying to work on. So in some ways, I traced it. And even Scott Christian Sava, I believe, he has a pretty big YouTube art channel. He totally talks about the fact that, like, when he's drawing celebrities, he traces their face and then he paints it in his own way. Where I had always thought he just drew these. And honestly, I don't care that he traces it or not. Who does? It doesn't matter. It was just my own hang up about it. One day on Etsy, I get a message and it was like, hey, I saw your Donald Trump card and I actually am writing an article. I'd really love to interview you. Could you email me or call me? And her email was emilycochran@nytimes.com. And I'm like, this is a joke. It's got to be a joke. It wasn't a joke. It was for real. I was scared out of my mind that this was it. I'm going to be found out. They're going to realize that I traced this or whatever. And it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous that I was worried about this. In the end, in the article, she was basically talking about, she was interviewing people who had made Trump memorabilia and basically just kind of investigating, why is Trump memorabilia, this was in 2017, by the way, or like early 2017 when I put out the card. And she just basically was researching, why is his memorabilia so big? Like, we've had, like, Obama memorabilia was big, but, like, for some reason the Trump memorabilia was, like, humongous. And it was because he was so polarizing, still is. And people loved him or hated him, and he was just, like, he was the perfect subject matter for any comedian. That was why my cards sold so well. Most of my customers were actually people who couldn't stand him, and they were sending them to people who either also couldn't stand him or people who loved him because they were like, well, it's making fun of him. I went ahead, I emailed. I tried to be like, listen, this could be a huge opportunity. Do not let this fear hold you back. So I emailed and we set up a time to have a phone call. And the phone call may have been 10 or 15 minutes long. And she asked me some questions, and I think I was shaking like a leaf the whole time on the phone, thinking, who's going to see this article? I just was really scared of what was going to happen with this. Not just that people were going to be like, I was like, there might be more eyeballs on my artwork, and that could invite more critics that are going to be like, who are you to be selling your artwork? Or, I was really scared of what all that attention could bring. I don't have interest in being well-known and famous personally, and then it's like my work, if that has gotten noticed in different publications, and I don't talk about that a whole lot because of imposter syndrome, because I'm like, who the hell am I to be featured anywhere? And another thing that happened though after, when the article did come out, and I'm gonna link all that below in the description box, is that the first people I thought to tell about this, aside from my husband, was my parents. Because I wanted them to know, like, oh my gosh, something I made got featured in, like, a national publication. But there's still a part of me going, well, it was an online article. I don't think it was ever in print. But either way, it was the New York Times. while I should be proud of that, I still have this like little bit of shame associated that it was because of this card I made of this horrible human being. I tell my parents, and my mom was thrilled. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is very exciting. And then I think she put the phone on speaker. She tells him, the Donald Trump card that Debbie did is going to be featured in the New York Times. He gets on the phone and he's like, okay, yeah, listen. Here's the thing you need to know about the New York Times. It's run by socialists and communists. And he goes into this whole rant about the New York Times and kind of invalidating any worth that it may have had, in my opinion. And that just brought the imposter syndrome feelings to 11. So because it was a publication that wasn't worthy of his praise, it was instantly like invalid. And I was pissed and just kind of like, could you just celebrate this with me? But no, because his political beliefs got the best of him. And so that is something that I have dealt with, like in the most recent past, I'd say. It was a feeling of, I'm not worthy to be in a publication. Then kind of having my critical upbringing come back full circle to tell me, yeah, it's not good enough to be in there because this is not a worthy publication. And I have had to deal with all this kind of stuff. By the way, my dad is proud of a lot of the stuff I do. In that moment, and I bet he doesn't even remember that he said any of those things. But in that moment, it was a real sucker punch for me. Like, I'm feeling like maybe I can let loose and be happy that I got this big thing. And then part of it was like, you're right, I'm not worthy. And it's that critical voice. So what do we do about these things? What do we do to quiet that critical voice? One of the things that my wonderful therapist had told me many years ago when I was dealing with this, and I actually told her this whole story, was she had kind of said, you need to picture your imposter syndrome, that critical voice in your head, as an annoying backseat driver. And it's someone who's just yammering on and annoying you while you're just trying to go places. You're trying to get from point A to B. And they're going, no, don't go this way. No, don't go that way. No, you're driving too fast. No, don't go there. Annoying the hell out of you. And you need to turn around and say, hey, I appreciate you letting me know. I know that you think that you know what's best for me, and I appreciate that. And that you're trying to keep me safe, because really that critical voice in your head is your ego, trying to keep you away from outside criticism by like, let's keep you safe in this box where you don't do anything, don't take any risks, so that you don't risk getting picked at and criticized, which your ego is gonna fall apart from. And you tell that voice like, hey, appreciate you, but I'm just gonna go my way. And you can be quiet now. And the only way out of imposter syndrome is through it. I wish I could say there was an easier way to do it, but that's the only way. Dealing with imposter syndrome is an inside job. The only person that can shut up that inner critic, that internet troll that lives inside you, is you. So whether that means you have a heroic voice that combats the anti-hero in your head, or what I find helpful sometimes is just saying these things out loud in therapy. Because when you hear yourself say the things you're thinking, you realize how silly it is. Sometimes writing it down and looking at it. And it takes time. It takes time to reprogram that default mode network in your head that leads you to those negative thoughts and that criticism. And I have a bunch of videos that I'm going to leave below in the description box. Wonderful videos from Struthless, Aramis the artist, and she did a TED Talk called Courage and Creativity. Spoiler alert, I've had her in my long list of people to talk about small art channels that you should be watching. And also there's another TED Talk by Lou Solomon called The Surprising Solution to Imposter Syndrome. And they're all great resources, and I highly recommend them, but check them all out.
Well, we're coming to the end here. But before you leave today, I hope you feel inspired or maybe less alone, and you don't feel like you're a weirdo and that you're hiding this big secret, because there's like a whole bunch of us out here. And if you don't know anyone personally, I'm out here. And I'm right here with you, being a fraud. If you'd like to watch some more Paint and Ponder videos, I'm going to put some right here. And if you would like to watch some other video that YouTube recommends, I'm going to put that over here. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and I will see you next week. If you don't subscribe, I'll probably see you never. So bye!